This guy says he was calling his wife to see what she wanted for dinner. Well, the person on the other end wasn't what he expected. I called my wife to ask what she wanted from the Chinese place, and a child answered her phone. That's how I discovered my wife's 9-month affair. It was an evening in October, around 6:30. She was supposedly at her volunteer shift at the animal shelter, the one she never missed. 3 evenings a week from 6 to 8:30, sometimes weekend afternoons for adoption events. I was working late at home doing inventory reports for the warehouse where I managed shipping operations. I got hungry and decided to order takeout. She usually liked the sesame chicken, but sometimes wanted the lo mein. Figured I'd call and ask what she was in the mood for when she got home. I dialed her number. It rang 3 times. Then someone picked up. Hello. It was a child's voice, a young boy, maybe 4 or 5 years old. I thought I misdialed. Sorry, I think I have the wrong number. No, wait. Is this my friend's phone? Friend. That's what he called her. Whose phone is this? I asked. My daddy's friend. She's at our house. She left her phone on the couch when she went upstairs with Daddy. I got nervous, and I could feel my heart beating a little faster. Went upstairs with Daddy. Where's your house? I asked. The big white one with the pool. Daddy owns the car dealerships. I knew exactly who that was. His commercials ran constantly on local TV. Recently divorced, big scandal in town. Why is she at your house? She comes over for meetings with Daddy a couple of times a week. Sometimes on weekends when I'm at baseball. A couple of times a week. When my wife had her volunteer shift. What kind of meetings? I asked. Daddy says they're grown-up meetings about important stuff. They usually go up to his office upstairs. Sometimes they watch movies up there. Movies. In his upstairs office? Is your mom there? Mommy doesn't live here anymore. She moved out last year. It's just me and Daddy now. How long has she been coming over? Since summer started. She brings me cookies sometimes from that bakery place. The bakery is near her gym. She claimed to work out before her volunteer shift. Can you take the phone to her? She said not to bother them when the door's closed. Daddy gets mad if I interrupt their meetings. I bet. The door was closed. They were upstairs behind the closed door. But I can tell her you called when they come down. What's your name? Never mind, I said. I'll talk to her later. Okay. Oh, wait, Daddy's coming down the stairs. I heard footsteps, then a man's voice in the background. What are you doing with that phone? Someone called your friend. Give me that. There was shuffling, then the line went dead. He'd hung up. The AP had hung up my wife's phone after his son revealed everything. I sat there staring at my phone. My wife wasn't at the animal shelter. She was at her affair partner's house. She had been going there for months, a couple of times a week, just like the kid said. The volunteer work was fake. The adoption events were fake. All of it was just a cover for her affair with the car dealership owner. Around 9:45, she walked through the door. Sorry, I'm late. I looked at her and just shook my head. Shirt not tucked in quite right. How was the shelter? I asked. Great. We're getting ready for a big adoption event this weekend. You should come see the puppies. Maybe I will, I said. She smiled and kissed me, heading to the bedroom to change. The same routine as always, except now I knew the truth. I sat there on the couch, my Chinese food order forgotten. 6 months of lies, 6 months of fake stories about rescue dogs and adoption events. And I had only discovered it because an innocent kid answered her phone. A kid who had no idea he just exposed my wife's affair. No idea he just destroyed my marriage. Of course he didn't. He's just a child. I heard the shower turn on in our bedroom. She was washing off the evidence of her evening with him, just like she had been doing for months. But this time was different. This time I knew exactly what she was washing away, and she had no idea that I knew. Most men would crash out if they knew their wife was cheating. They wouldn't be able to channel their emotions into something positive and strategic. If you let your emotions get the best of you, you're going to make a mistake and possibly end up in trouble. Channel your emotions. Easier said than done, I know, but channel them. The next morning, she made breakfast like nothing had happened. I watched her move around the kitchen, wondering how she could be so calm. How could she look me in the eye and smile after what she'd done last night? You're up early, she said. Couldn't sleep, I replied. That was the truth. I'd been awake all night thinking about that phone call, about that little boy's voice telling me my wife was upstairs with his daddy. She sat across from me, scrolling through her phone, probably texting him, making plans for the next meeting. I might stop by the shelter this weekend, I said, to see those puppies you mentioned. Her hand froze just for a second. Oh, that's sweet, but they're actually not doing visits this weekend. But didn't she just say, come by the shop this weekend? Some kind of deep cleaning or something. Another lie. After she left for work, I called in sick, told my supervisor I had a crisis at home. Then I drove to the animal shelter where she supposedly volunteered. The parking lot was half full, people coming and going with dogs. I walked inside. A young woman at the front desk smiled at me. Can I help you? I'm interested in volunteering, I said. My wife volunteers here and loves it. Oh, wonderful. What's her name? Maybe I know her. I told her my wife's name. She frowned, typed something into her computer. I don't see anyone by that name in our system. When did she start? About 9 months ago, she said. The woman shook her head. We keep records of all our volunteers for insurance purposes. I've been here for 2 years and I don't recognize that name. Are you sure it's this location? I was sure. This was the only animal shelter within a 20-mile radius. Maybe I misunderstood, I said. Thanks anyway. I sat in my car in the parking lot, thinking I knew where she was. 9 months of lies. 3 nights a week, sometimes weekends, all of it fake. I thought about that little boy again, 4 or 5 years old. He'd said his daddy owned car dealerships. There were only 2 big dealership owners in town. One was in his 70s, married for 40 years. The other had been all over the news last year. A messy divorce. The wife caught him with his secretary. Mid-40s, owned 3 dealerships. I Googled his name on my phone. The images showed a man who appeared to be a regular at the gym. There were also older photos from before the divorce, him with his ex-wife and a young boy. The kid would be about the right age now. I drove to his biggest dealership, parked across the street where I could see the entrance. His face was on every banner, every sign. We'll beat any deal. Family owned and operated. Family owned. What a joke. I wondered if his employees knew their boss was messing around with married women in his upstairs office, while his little boy played downstairs. That evening, my wife came home from work right on time. How was your day? I asked. Good. The shelter needs extra help tonight. New intake of dogs from that hoarding case. I played along and asked a few questions. The shelter closed at 6. They let volunteers in after closing? I asked. She didn't miss a beat. That's when we do the real work. No public to worry about. Just focusing on the animals. Makes sense, I said. Another lie perfectly delivered. She changed clothes, put on her volunteer shirt. See you later, she said, giving me a kiss. Have fun with the dogs, I said. She smiled and left. I knew where she was going. I needed to find where they were meeting. In Georgia, adultery means no alimony in a divorce, but I needed proof. I called a private investigator that evening, gave him what I knew and why I thought it was a car dealership owner. I gave him my wife's name, the make and model of her car, and some of the places she frequents. He said he'd handle it. 2 days later, he called back, found the house. Your wife's car is there right now. Got photos of her entering. He texted me the address. I drove there myself the next time she had a shift. Parked down the street with a clear view of the driveway. 15 minutes later, her car pulled up. She didn't even hesitate. Just walked right to the door like she lived there. It opened before she could knock. He was waiting for her. They went inside together. I sat there for an hour, watching the house. Saw shadows moving past the upstairs windows, the office where they had their important meetings, where they watched movies. I thought about that little boy somewhere in that house. Did he eat dinner alone while they were upstairs? Did he wonder why Daddy's door was always locked? My phone buzzed. A text from her. Running late. Dog situation. Be home by 10. A dog situation. Right. I drove home and waited. She walked in at 10:15. "Sorry, baby," she said, kissing me. One of the dogs got loose and we had to chase it around the neighborhood. I smelled his cologne on her. Expensive stuff, not what I wore. "Must have been quite a chase," I said. "You're exhausted." "Yeah, I'm going to shower and head to bed." She always showers after her volunteer shifts now. She used to talk to me a little bit before getting into the shower. The next morning was a weekend. She slept in while I made coffee and thought about my next move. The private investigator had texted me more photos, time-stamped, dated, undeniable. My wife leaving his house at midnight, shopping with him at the mall, all while I thought she was saving dogs. I needed to know more about this guy before I confronted them. Knowledge is power, and I wanted all the power when this exploded. I drove to his main dealership that afternoon. Told my wife I was going to look at trucks. Technically, not a lie. The place was massive. Flags everywhere. His face on every poster. I walked around the lot, looking at the setup. 3 stories, glass and chrome everywhere. The upper floor had offices with big windows. One corner office, bigger than the rest, probably his, where he used to screw his secretary. Well, all I have to say to that is, he was brave to do that. To have sex where you work, not a smart move. I assume where he brought my wife when they couldn't go to his house. I left without talking to anyone. That evening, she had another volunteer shift. After she left, I sat at home going through the photos the PI had sent, dozens of them. My wife arriving at his house, leaving hours later. One photo showed the little boy in the window, watching as they kissed in the driveway. The kid was seeing all of this. Another photo showed them through the kitchen window, drinking wine while the boy ate dinner alone at the table. The PI had documented everything, times, dates, and even some audio recordings when they were in public. My wife laughing at his jokes, calling him baby, talking about their future, while I sat at home thinking she was saving dogs. Evidence. Monday morning, I called a divorce attorney. I explained the situation and the evidence I had. He came right out and said Georgia's divorce laws are tough on people who seek alimony but got caught cheating on their spouse. Yeah, I've narrated a couple of stories where a few people were married in Georgia, but they were married for over 20 years, caught their wife cheating. They didn't get a dime. With this proof, she gets nothing. No alimony, no claim on future earnings, just her personal belongings and half the current savings. What about the house? You bought it before marriage. It's yours. She has no claim. Perfect. Draw up the papers, I said. I want to be ready. He said he'd have them by the end of the week. That gave me 5 days to prepare. I opened a new bank account at a different bank. Started moving half the savings there, which was legally mine to take. Bought new locks for the house. Started moving half the savings there, which was legally mine to take. Bought new locks for the house. Started photographing all our belongings for the asset division. She noticed nothing. She was too busy with her fake volunteer work to pay attention to what I was doing. 3 nights that week, she went to him, each time coming home with new lies. A dog bit another dog. A water pipe burst at the shelter. They needed help with paperwork. The lies were getting lazier. She wasn't even trying anymore. Friday night, she forgot her phone again. Left it charging in the kitchen while she showered. It buzzed with a text. I looked at the preview. Her AP bragged about the night before and seems excited about the upcoming Saturday, when she was supposed to go to her sister's for the day. Another lie to add to the pile. I took a screenshot with my phone. More evidence. The attorney called on Friday afternoon. Papers are ready. When do you want to serve her? Not yet, I said. I want to catch her in the act, make it impossible for her to deny. The evidence you have is already enough, he said. I know, but I want her to know that I know everything. Every lie, every time she was with him. Saturday was going to be perfect. She would leave for her sister's, but I would follow. And when she got to his house instead, I would be right behind her with the divorce papers. 9 months of lies were about to end. Saturday morning came. She was up early, humming in the shower, getting ready for her sister's house, or so she thought I believed. What time are you heading out? I asked over breakfast. Around 10. Want to beat the traffic. Her sister lives 2 hours north. The AP's house was 20 minutes south. Have fun, I said. Tell your sister I said hi. She smiled and kissed my cheek. Will do. I'll be back by dinner. At 10:15, she pulled out of the driveway. I waited 1 minute, then followed. She took the highway south, just as I expected. Not north toward her sister's. I stayed 3 cars behind, watching her car. She never checked her mirrors, never suspected anything. 20 minutes later, she exited toward his neighborhood. I followed at a distance. She pulled into his driveway like she owned the place, didn't even hesitate. I parked across the street and watched. The front door opened before she knocked, but it wasn't him. It was the little boy, the same voice I'd heard on the phone. She hugged the kid and walked inside, like she was part of the family. I sat there for a minute, the divorce papers on my passenger seat. Then I got out and walked to the door, rang the doorbell. The little boy answered again. Hi, he said cheerfully. Is my friend here? The lady who just came in? You mean Miss Jennifer? She's upstairs with Daddy. Of course she was. Can you get her for me? Tell her someone needs to talk to her. Daddy says not to bother them when the door's closed. Tell him it's an emergency. About her car. Is her car broken? Hey, buddy, just go get them. He ran upstairs. I heard his little feet on the stairs, then knocking. Daddy! Someone's here about Miss Jennifer's car. Muffled voices, then footsteps. My wife appeared at the top of the stairs. Man, she looked like she saw a ghost when she saw my face. Hi, honey, I said. How's your sister? She couldn't move, couldn't speak. The AP appeared behind her, shirtless. Who the fuck are you? I'm her husband, the one who's been home alone while she pretends to volunteer at an animal shelter. Surprise, I said, holding up the divorce papers. She's been married for 9 years. The AP's face darkened. You told me you're separated. My wife found her voice. We need to talk about this at home. No, we don't. We're done talking. 9 months of lies about saving dogs, about adoption events and emergency situations. The little boy started crying. Is Miss Jennifer in trouble? Go to your room, the AP told his son. But Daddy, now. The kid ran off, still crying. My wife came down the stairs, trying to maintain some dignity. Please, let's go home and discuss this. There's nothing to discuss. The private investigator has been following you for weeks. I have photos, recordings, everything. She reached for the papers in my hand. I pulled them back. These get filed on Monday. You can get your things tomorrow while I'm at work. Only your clothes and personal items. You can't just kick me out. Actually, I can. The house is in my name. Actually, he can't. It's the marital home. You can't just kick somebody out. If they get mail there, you can't just kick them out. Always has been, and Georgia doesn't give alimony to cheaters. The AP finally spoke up. She told me you two were getting divorced. Well, now we are, I said. Congratulations, you got what you wanted. She's all yours. I looked at my wife one last time. Your key won't work when you come tomorrow. Ring the doorbell. I'll have your things packed. I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard them starting to argue, him demanding to know why she lied, her trying to explain. The last thing I heard was a little boy's voice. Daddy, why is everyone yelling? I got in my car and drove home. The first thing I did was change the locks. Then I started packing her things. 9 months of deception ended because a confused little boy answered her phone. Sometimes the truth comes out in the strangest ways. At the divorce hearing, she was awarded only half of the savings, her belongings, and her car. The AP stopped seeing her, and she actually moved in with her sister. She didn't have anywhere else to go. I loved her with all my heart, but when I heard that kid's voice on the other side of that phone, I snapped mentally. But I kept my composure and buried her. To my fellow man, always trust your instincts. All I have to say is the average man probably wouldn't have acted the way he did. You know, a lot of men outside of YouTube would probably let their emotions get the best of him. If you allow your emotions to explode or get the best of you, you're going to make a mistake. So men, if you come across a cheating partner, try to keep your composure. And the reason why I keep saying that is because letting your emotions run away can get you in a lot of trouble, can possibly cause you to lose your freedom. And no woman or man is worth that. Until next time.